So welcome once again to Living in the 21st Century. Joining me this morning is Senior Nathaniel Brown. He will be hosting Expo's Dementia Conference approximately around the end of this month. And Nathaniel, it's good to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure. So my first question to you, actually, would you kindly introduce yourself and tell the public what your conference is all about and a little bit more about dementia to get started?
Absolutely.
Sure.
So as you mentioned, my name is Nathaniel Brown. Most people call me Chuck. I am a filmmaker, a writer, a writing coach, and I pretty much created a documentary about dementia in the African American community. And that kind of quickly turned into, hey, we need to do more to get information out to the community. So we created Exposed Dementia Incorporated, which is our nonprofit organization. And that's where we decided that we were going to do this conference called the Exposed Dementia Conference, which we're going to be doing in Baltimore, March 28th through the 30th. And so we're very excited about it because our whole mission is to utilize the arts and the media as tools and resources to be able to educate people about dementia, to advocate for people living with dementia and their care partners, and then also to be able to help people come together to have conversations about something that's not always easy to talk about. And so this conference is going to really set the platform to allow us to be able to have that space where we can come together as a community, we can have these conversations, and we can utilize the arts, which have been proven to make a difference. So we want to be able to do that. So we're focusing on art, music, dance, Legos. We're having an art exhibit, a comedy show. So just all of these ways of bringing arts to the forefront as a way to really make a difference and defeat some of these trends that we're seeing with dementia right now in this country.
Well, this is really exciting. I've been working in dementia for like almost 6 years also. And during this process, actually, I recognize that there's a very low percentage of Black people I see comes into dementia, skilled nursing facilities. Apparently, of what you've just said, it seems to me that we have a very high percentage of African Americans suffering from dementia. Could you really elaborate on that some more?
Yeah, so according to the Alzheimer's Association, they did a report a few years ago, and they said that African Americans are twice as likely to develop dementia or to be living with dementia, older African Americans. And then the Hispanic community is 1.5 times. So we're twice as likely, they're 1.5 times more likely to be diagnosed than the white community. And so that's a problem because a lot of times in the African American community, we don't go to the hospital, we don't get tested, we don't get diagnosed. So those numbers are probably much higher than that. And so we want to be able to this, which is why we named the organization Expose Dementia, because we want to expose it. We want to have the conversation so that we can reverse those trends, and then we can get the help that we need within the communities. And so by us having these conversations, now it's not taboo. Now we can open up a little bit more. We can find out what resources are in the community that would allow us to get the help that we need within our families. And that's what happened to my family. My family has been impacted tremendously by dementia. And so I wanted to first help my family. Then I wanted to extend it to help my community. Then I wanted to extend it to help my city and my state in my country, in my world. And so the more we talk about it, the easier it's going to be to have these conversations, and then for us to make the changes that are necessary if we are indeed going to expose dementia.
I mean, this is great. So far you've said so much. It's weird because often, most of the times when I see patients or residents coming to both nursing homes I used to work at before, or still work at rather, I will find that we have a high percentage, probably 80% of white, maybe 10% Black, and sometimes hardly Hispanic at all. And the question is left to be asked, is these minorities getting the kind of attention they need? Is it going on for undetected, whether it is in a medical facility or whatever the case may be? Because I know black people are very cautious in going to doctors for one reason or the other. Some may not even have insurance to speak of, and often these things can slip you by. But with that being said, what comes to mind is still some family member may be able to see a change in your behavioral pattern to recognize that something just doesn't look right anymore and get you the kind of treatment that you may possibly need. Do you think that there's a lot of not caring enough by family members, doctors not really giving the right opinion when it comes to some folks opposed to the other folks?
Yeah, there are so many things that come to mind when you brought that up. The first thing is the stigma of dementia. So a lot of times in the African American community in particular, we don't want to have those conversations. We don't want anybody to know what's going on. We've heard that people are crazy, senile. We've heard all the terms over the years. And so a lot of times we don't talk about it, first of all. And so if we don't talk about it, it's like, yeah, it's not really here. It doesn't really happen because we don't talk about it. But we know it's happening.
Yes.
And then you have the other part that a lot of us in the minority communities, we're used to taking care of our own at home.
Absolutely.
And so if we don't get the diagnosis, we don't want to go to the hospital, we don't want to seek treatment or help because of the stigma. Now it's only getting worse. And so by the time we actually see someone or see a doctor to have those conversations, we're probably in advanced stages. And so we associate it with death. And so if we're getting diagnosed earlier, then we can get some treatment. We can not stop it, but we can extend the quality of life because now we have treatment. We have the ability to do some things as opposed to hiding it, keeping it at home, and then things get worse fast. And so there's work to be done across the board. Yes, the physicians need to do a better job of diagnosing, giving information. For example, I have a family member who was told, oh, don't worry about, what happened to you, losing your memory, forgetting things. We'll deal with it when it gets worse. We'll deal with it later. We'll check it again in a few years. That's unacceptable. And so we have a job to do to educate not only the African American community, not only the Hispanic community or any other minority community. We have to educate everyone. We have to educate the white community. We have to educate the medical community to be able to have those conversations to break some of the barriers of mistrust and distrust. And so that goes across the board. But everybody has to come to the table and say, you know what? Let's do this together. Let's have these conversations. Let's make some changes. Let's improve the quality of life for everyone. And so that's what we're doing at the Exposed Dementia Conference. So every race is going to be there, every ethnic group, every age group. We want to be able to bring people together to say, hey, what can we do to make a difference? What can you bring to the table? What can you offer? Now let's start making those changes. Now let's expose people to, hey, there are facilities that you can take your loved ones to who are doing great things that you can trust, that you can really find people who care just as much as you care about your loved ones. Now, obviously, that's not all facilities. That's another, topic for another day. But there are some, and there are organizations who are working to improve the conditions for everyone. And so that's what we want to introduce people to.
Absolutely. I remember back in the 80s, my aunt, who was very old at that time, she had Alzheimer's. And when I speak of Alzheimer's, people doesn't understand that dementia, there's so many different types and forms of dementia, from Lewy bodies to Huntington, the list goes on, Parkinson and so forth. And they all got some form of different traits, even with the same expectation and outcome in the final end. What could we possibly say to families? Because I think these things first has to be observed, or some kind of difference in human behavior or their family members' behavior to find that something strange is going on. I know you may not be a doctor in that field, but what are some of the significant changes that for the normal person in the household should take serious about the elderly person who's living there and that something is going on around?
Yeah, so that was the first thing that slapped me in the face. I didn't know that there were so many types of dementia. When I did my first short film, I said, I dedicate this to my aunt who's living with dementia. And someone said, well, what type of dementia? And I said, what do you mean? I said, dementia. And they said, no, it's over 100 types of dementia. And I was like, what? And so that started my quest to learn more. And so I started researching and found out that there are over 100 and the different types and how different they are.
Yes.
And the problem is because we don't have these conversations and we won't go to the doctor to talk about it, we never know. And so the 6 or 7 family members who died with some form of dementia, all I ever knew was dementia. So I never knew what type they had. And so it wasn't until this whole experience that I started looking, then I started asking questions and asked my cousin, well, what type of dementia does my aunt have? And she said, dementia. What do you mean? And I was like, no, go back and talk to the doctor. And so that's where a big change is going to come from us having these conversations, going, talking to our physicians and getting answers. Not just having a conversation and whatever they say we accept, but get an understanding of what it is. Because they told us that it was dementia, but they didn't tell us what kind. So now we don't know if the treatment that my aunt is receiving is the right treatment because they didn't tell us what type of dementia. So we have to have these conversations to get, if anything is going on, if we feel like our life is changing, and we associated it before with older adults, 75, 80, etc. Now it's happening younger and younger.
Absolutely.
So if you're seeing certain things like your memory loss, or if you're getting lost to places where you're going on a regular basis and you know how to get there, and now you just can't seem to find your way, have that conversation with your family, have that conversation with your doctor, and ask to be tested.
I agree, absolutely. I found one of the most interesting things that more and more you see people, elderly people with dementia who are doctors, who have masters in specific fields and so forth. And it's trying to figure sometimes if their family member think that they were too smart or too educated to have dementia, and then when certain things start happen, oh, that may be just something with old age, so forget about it. But all that time, your loved one, who you know to be the scientist or economist or a lawyer, is actually suffering from seriously dementia. And because there's such a wide variation of different types of dementia, the average day person who's busy at work can't really figure out what's really going on. So just ignore that, go ahead with their living. But I want to look at things that could do for those who want to be assisting their dementia person, which I don't think is a good idea at home. It's too much to deal with. And those who put their loved ones in the nursing facility. And often, sometimes you find people with more sensory issues. What kind of activities would you want to give that person to keep that part of the brain that's still working? Most of the time, the short-term memory is gone. The long-term memory still have that endurance to prolong for a while. What kind of sensory materials you may think would be good to just give them to keep their minds functioning?
Right. As you mentioned, I'm no medical doctor.
Right. Okay.
I'm not speaking from that term.
Right. Okay.
But what I'm learning through my research and my experience with my family and others that I've come in contact with, a lot of what we're doing through the arts and media stimulates the brain. It stimulates all those sensory things that you're talking about, which is why we're really promoting the Lego therapy, music therapy, art. So when they're painting or they're coloring and they're doing different things like that. Also, one of the day centers that we interviewed for the documentary, they have paint that has smell to it. So the yellow smells like lemon. Just to be able to stimulate all of those senses while they're doing activities. And so what we're trying to do now is to do more research to really pinpoint some of those areas. But a ton of research has been done to talk about how music therapy has helped maintain memories long into the dementia journey. And so those types of things that we're highlighting at different moments and different times, we want more people to experience it and to learn and even try at home with your loved one before they get to the point where they have to be in some skilled nursing facility or memory care facility. But you can do music therapy at home with them. You can get a playlist of their favorite songs from 30 years ago that they're familiar with. Now they can listen to those things and it might jog some of those memories. It might maintain some of those memories. Same thing with keeping them creative. But then, of course, you want to go and do as much as you can on the exercise, making sure they get the proper sleep, making sure they're eating the proper diets that will help your brain health as well. And so all of those things will contribute to a quality of life being extended, even with dementia. And so that's the key. Like, life is not over when you're diagnosed with dementia. Absolutely. There are things you can do to still extend the quality of life for as long as you can. But if you do nothing, it only gets worse faster.
Yeah. Could you explain the importance of family members trying to accept your behavioral changes and learn to cope with them, especially if you're dealing with them at home? Now, we know for a fact in the nursing facilities, there are a whole ton of laws that there to represent and make sure that the dementia patient get right treatment within the Medicare program and so forth, and they have all their resident rights, and all that is good for those in the nursing facilities. But for those who are at home, who are just, and I'm saying this because I recognized recently that there are many people who may be qualified more for Medicaid and Medicare. So I'm saying that there may come a time where families may now have to look after their loved ones, just like it was back in the old days, right, where families took it as an honor to look after the elderly. What they should expect from behavioral changes in their loved one as the dementia patterns worsen, and how can they cope with it, where they can take exchanges from family member to family member and deal with it on a daily level. How would you reach out to those kind of members in the families?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is that every dementia journey is different.
Yes.
You can't look at one and say, oh, I read in this book or I saw this example, and so this is what I expect from my loved one. So that's the first thing, is understanding that journey of your loved one is going to be unique. Mm-hmm. However, there are common things that you can understand and learn about. And the first thing is you don't have to do it alone. There are support groups. There are organizations like the Alzheimer's Association. There are other groups within the community who are trying to do a better job of providing that information. So, you know, when my loved one makes these changes, what do I do? How do I have the conversation? But you also have to realize that your loved one is changing before your eyes. Yes. And so you have to learn to live in their world as opposed to trying to get them into your world, because there are two different worlds now. And so the more you learn about the process, what they go through, what they experience, what they might be feeling, the difficulties in putting together the words that they're trying to say, or remembering people and things like that, we have to be compassionate. And then we also have to figure out those things to make it easier for your loved one, and you adapt to that situation as opposed to trying to force feed them into yours. My mother was caring for her brother for a while, and she was really upset with him from some of the things that he was doing. And so after she saw the documentary where it explained so much that she didn't know, because nobody in our family ever talked about anything, she said, I wish I would have known this then. I would have treated him differently. I would have cared for him differently. I would have understood some things. And so education is a big component to this journey. And so the caregiver, the family caregiver, needs to be educated, need to communicate with the other family members. They need to be able to really understand what is taking place and how to get that help outside of the house, even when you're caring for them inside the house.
Absolutely. So at this point, though, I want us to look more now at your conference, what people could look to expect, what they can take away with them, that can change your concepts and precepts about dealing with dementia patients, whether it's in the nursing homes or at home, wherever it may be. Would you care to elaborate more on your conference and sell your conference to the world, so to speak?
Absolutely. We're so excited about the Exposed Dementia Conference. You can find out more information at exposeddementia.org, which is our website. But it's a 3-day conference, so it's going to start on Friday. We're going to have an amazing comedy show featuring Coco Brown and the Gwen Factor, who are both caregivers for family members. So they're going to share some of their personal experiences in addition to just some laughs. We want to be able to laugh because laughter is like medicine, right? Absolutely. So we're going to be able to laugh and get some information. Then all day Saturday, we're going to have different films that we're going to show that are focused on brain health or dementia, Alzheimer's, etc. And then we're going to have a lot of educational sessions, everything from a panel called The State of Dementia, where we're going to talk about all the things that are impacted with dementia, from research to the new medications to caregiving, to self-care, all of those types of things. And then we have all of those specific areas that I mentioned earlier. We have an art therapist, a music therapist, dance therapist, Lego therapist, and then we just have researchers and so much information. In addition to that, we're going to have a ton of community resources. Organizations like ASI, which is one of the pharmaceutical companies, will have information about some of the things they're doing. The Alzheimer's Association, Johns Hopkins University will be there. We just have a ton of great community partners who came together to say, hey, we want to be able to help. We want to be able to share this information because we know how much it's needed. And so we're just really excited, and we hope as many people who can come out just to meet the individuals who are there. We'll have people there living with dementia. We'll have experts. We'll have researchers. We'll have physicians. People will be in the room to answer the questions that you have.
Beautiful. Will there be an entrance fee? Not quote the dollars, but will there be an entrance fee to attend the conference? And also, will the conference be issuing any form of certification to anyone who want to do courses or anything like that, or to state they would have attended a dementia conference, anything like that?
Yeah, so there won't be any credits offered, continuing education credits offered for this conference. There is a registration fee, but because of our community partners that I just mentioned, we do have some scholarships available. Awesome. So if anyone is listening and interested in attending, but maybe you don't have the money to be able to come, we want you to be there. So please reach out to us again at exposeddementia.org. Let us know, send us a message through there that, hey, I'm interested in coming. I understand there are scholarships. Can I get a scholarship to attend? And if you have additional questions, please put it in the comments as well to say, I'm looking for this. This is where I am. And we will connect you to as many resources as we can to make sure you get the answers, even if you can't attend the conference.
Okay. Is the scholarships like a full scholarship to do a dementia course with a university or college or anything? Is it fully paid? Is it
No, this is the scholarship to attend the conference.
Oh, the conference. Okay.
Yeah. So there is a registration fee to attend the conference. But if you can't afford it and you still want to come, please let us know. Okay.
All right. Well, with that being said, I'm not going to finish. We have like 3 more minutes remaining, roughly. Just for the public knowledge, how important is it for the public to understand that dementia is a widespread disease and it can affect almost anyone at any given time, whether it's in your household or your immediate friends or families? Could you briefly just educate the public to that?
Yes, absolutely. I think the statistic is, and don't quote me on the statistic itself, okay, but here's the message behind it, that by 2050, I believe it is, the numbers are expected to double and triple the amount of dementia cases in the United States. So that's letting us know now that a lot of people that are around us, even if it's not our family member, even if it's not you, it might be a colleague at work, it might be someone you see every day at the grocery store, could be affected by this. And so that's why it's a crisis, and we need to do as much as we can to extend this information. And that's why we're going around the country with the documentary. We're having these different conferences. Well, we're supporting other conferences at different locations because we need more of this information and not less. It's getting worse. It's happening to us at younger ages, and more people are living longer. So that means that these numbers are skyrocketing, and that's why we need to do more.
Okay. Well, on that note, Nathaniel or Chuck, it was really a pleasure having you on. I trust that this knowledge will be imparted to the public at large, and they will take away something from it in the future for their families. And for all those who have been tuning in or living in the 21st century, have a great day.